Welcome to the American Football Stories podcast, brought to you by Coach Payne. Today is November 11th, 2020. I'm your host, Nick Knudsen, and with me is my co-host, Robert Parker. On today's episode, we'll look ahead to this weekend's games, give our gambling advice for select college football matchups in Week 10 of the NFL.
What time is it? Game time! It's gonna be special. They're gonna talk about this forever.
Welcome to American Football Stories.
Puts his head down, crashes and spins, and dives. Touchdown!
Bringing together the many perspectives that make up college football in the NFL.
Football is one of the greatest sports ever invented.
From players and coaches.
Believe, baby, believe, baby.
Hey, we playing to win right here, fellas.
To the front office and scouts.
The public is finally beginning to catch up, but they don't even know half the truth.
Us against the world, let's get it.
Your hosts, Robert Parker and Nick Knudsen, bring you American Football Stories.
Let's first jump into the college football schedule this week. And obviously, we have a lot of cancellations and postponements due to COVID. The SEC primarily, for example, 4 games out of the SEC, but I'll just go in order here. Alabama, LSU postponed. Ohio State, Maryland straight up canceled. Good job, Big Ten. That Big Ten policy's got no wiggle room for error. Just straight up canceled. No postponement. Okay. Texas A&M, Tennessee postponed. Georgia, Missouri postponed. Auburn, Mississippi State postponed. Memphis, Navy postponed. Air Force, Wyoming canceled. UL Monroe, Arkansas State postponed. I'm interested to see that there's that many quote-unquote postponements still, Rob, but hey, we got 4 SEC games off the docket already for this weekend, and we're starting to run into dilemma here because there's one Saturday, the 12th of December, that was the bye week before the SEC championship game, but really it was reserved for a makeup game. I think the SEC did better than any conference to prepare for this in terms of just leaving room on the schedule. I mean, you could say the ACC and Big 12 did a nice job too. They left plenty of room as well, but I guess it's SEC stark contrast to what the Big Ten's doing, right? So they at least have some wiggle room here. But the problem you're running into is now you're having teams like LSU, for example, Missouri, for example, that already have that 12th taken up. LSU was set to play Florida on the 12th. Missouri was set to play Vandy. But it's getting pretty complicated now. If there's a game like Tennessee and Texas A&M, it's not a problem, right? Those teams don't have any issue. But I got this from an article by Bill Bender in the Sporting News, and he was talking about basically the SEC is wanting it to play out this way. Tennessee, Texas A&M, they didn't have a December 12th date. Go ahead, take that date. So if you have that, if you don't have a date, go for the 12th, go ahead and add it, no problem. But for the teams with conflicts, like LSU, for example, is supposed to play Florida on December 12th. Alabama's the SEC West opponent. That's probably takes priority. However, Alabama and Florida, the best case scenario you can hope for is that Alabama and Florida go ahead and clinch their divisions before the 12th. And then what could happen on that day is you got Tennessee, Texas A&M, Missouri playing Vandy, and instead of LSU worrying about playing Florida or Alabama and Georgia worrying about getting a makeup game with Missouri because they already got a date with Vanderbilt, maybe just LSU and Georgia pair up and play. Give Florida and Alabama a bye week to make sure both teams are healthy going into the SEC title game. Rob, what do you think of that scenario?
I love that scenario, Nick, and I tell you what, that's definitely pretty fair. I mean, LSU right now definitely seems like they're out of contention for making a playoff, run, especially within the conference, not alone, on a national scale. So I can definitely see it shape up that way where, Alabama and Florida kind of get the bye weeks ahead of the SEC championship game, and you kind of let those other teams duke it out. That's definitely a good assessment for how it should play out, if you ask me. But just like you said, things are getting murkier right now. You having the COVID upticks in different states or whatever. It kind of seems like, the players and the students on campus is not adhering and buying by, the COVID protocol. So I think this is what you're seeing. And but I definitely like your assessment of how the rest of the SEC schedule should play out, barring any more postponement or cancel games.
Well, I did get that from just to be clear, I did get that from Bill Bender in the Sporting News article. I love that scenario. I think they absolutely Florida and LSU. What's the point of playing that game unless it needs to be played? I think we're getting to a point in the season where it's like I said, we keep saying postpone. The word canceled needs to start being used a little more because again, I'm not being critical of the Big Ten that you're canceling games. I'm being critical because you're playing poorly. That's what I'm critical of with the Big Ten. The SEC, you at least allowed this like possibility to exist that, hey, we might need to make up games. I like the fact that Georgia and LSU could play a pickup game. Personally, I don't see the point in it other than maybe TV money, nice TV money. But both programs are willing to play and the players and coaches want to play. Have at it. I think it's good that you got that flexibility. I mean, the other thing you're starting to see too, Rob, what about these programs with players that the teams aren't doing so well? Pitt, I just saw Paris Ford opted out. Florida State announced that Marvin Wilson is out for the season with injury. This is a tweet from Brett McMurphy. Florida State coach Mike Norvell announces defensive tackle Marvin Wilson's out of for the season with injury. Wide receiver Tamarian Terry, I was just calling him Terry. Sorry if I'm butchering that first name, is no longer with the program. And quarterback James Blackman will enter the transfer portal after the semester ends. Look, I mean, I think especially with bad teams, you're starting to see things go awry. I know there's a lot of speculation around the media about the reason there's so many COVID cases right now in programs. It's not because Notre Dame stormed the field and gave all of college football COVID, because it was Halloween a couple weekends ago. And Halloween's pretty fun on a college campus. Kids like to go out and have a good time.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, definitely wasn't due to Notre Dame storming the field and a great win over Clemson. But I think you're right about that. Halloween was just, right around the corner. Kids like to go out. Kids like to dress up. I've seen multiple reports of parties getting, shut down. So, it was inevitable it was inevitable, Nick, that, we would have a COVID outbreak. But one thing, just like you mentioned earlier, the SEC did a really good job of being flexible with the dates. But now they're kind of running the issue, especially when you have, 4 games postponed in one weekend.
Yeah. So, and we're really getting to the point of the season. I think you're just going to, some of these games, there's no point to playing some of these games. If you could give your 2 teams in the SEC championship game, what's better for the SEC in the college football playoff? That Florida plays LSU or Alabama plays LSU the weekend before the SEC title game, or you give both those teams a break, make sure everybody's healthy, and have the best 2 teams possible on the field in Atlanta? I would say it's the latter. So I honestly, I think it's a bit of no-brainer. I don't even think that's much of a discussion, but hopefully the SEC sees it that way, and it's not about just TV contracts and stuff at this point, because I think that everybody's made a good faith effort to make this season happen. I mean, honestly, has this season gone about as well as you could have hoped?
I think so. I mean, if you asked me this question, a couple months back, I was definitely, in that same, committee that's saying it might not be a season, or if it is a season, it's definitely going to be cut short. So I think this is actually going as good as anyone thought right about now. And I think especially within the SEC, with them, having, dates that they can kind of move around, unlike the Big Ten that we mentioned earlier that we just harp on, that just had a horrible policy, altogether. But once again, we will dive into the Big Ten when we talk about Wisconsin later on.
All right, so let's move on. We do these podcasts on Wednesday nights typically, so I'll read you the scores from Tuesday. Akron falls to Ohio. Lots of action going on here. Akron falls to Ohio 24-10. Kent State 62. Bowling Green 24. Buffalo crushes Miami of Ohio. That's Rob's pick in the MAC this year. He's a big Buffalo Bulls guy. Tonight, Eastern Michigan. These games are currently going on while we're doing the podcast. Eastern Michigan, Ball State, Toledo, Western Michigan, Central Michigan, Northern Illinois. On Thursday, November 12th, Colorado State travels to Boise. The Broncos look to bounce back after a rough loss to BYU. That's the only game on Thursday night in college football. On Friday, you got 3 games. FAU at FIU, big rivalry down there in South Florida. Iowa goes to Minnesota, Big Ten football on Friday night. And number 7, Cincinnati plays East Carolina. So if you haven't made time to watch the Bearcats, Friday night might be the time to catch them a little bit and see what they're all about. Playoff contender, outside shot, but playoff contender. All right, let's move to Saturday, November 14th. We open up at noon with number 9 Miami going to Virginia Tech. And Rob, I couldn't believe this, stunned my eyes when I saw this, but the Virginia Tech Hokies coming off a loss to Liberty, which if you did you do the Liberty thing in your head like 10 times every time you see their name? Liberty, Liberty, Liberty. I kept doing that.
Yeah, definitely a good one.
That's how you know marketing works, man. But Virginia Tech is a 2-point favorite against Miami, -125 on the money line, and the over-under is at 67.5. Rob, I'm going to let you pick first because I'm going to sit back in shock that Virginia Tech is actually favored in this game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I know Miami struggled in their last game, but once again, Virginia Tech lost to Liberty. I think that was probably one of the upsets of this past week. And I was definitely shocked when that line came out and I saw Virginia Tech being a favorite. But actually, I'm going to take Virginia Tech on the bounce back game to beat Miami. So I'm going to pick Virginia Tech on the money line.
Virginia Tech on the money line. You know what I didn't do? I didn't grab a pen. I need to grab a pen real quick here. Virginia Tech on the money line. Tell me why.
Losing to Liberty, I think that was just a big blow to the Virginia Tech program. I think they bounced back. It was kind of it wasn't a blowout game. It kind of came down to the wire. And in that game, we talked about that in our segment on our last podcast episode. So I really just think Virginia Tech is going to bounce back and get the better of Miami in this one. I know struggled the last couple games, so I'm going to just give the edge to Virginia Tech, just for the bounce back game.
No disrespect to Liberty. I think Liberty is playing some good football right now. And, hey, you played right with Virginia Tech. Good for you. But Miami's not a bad team this year. They're scoring lots of points. Their defense has been suspect at times. But the Canes are playing good enough football. They're finding ways to win. That's what I like about this Miami team this year. Even when they're ugly, they find ways to win. So they haven't been – honestly, since Clemson, I don't think that offense has really lit it up since that Clemson game, right? Like maybe whatever Clemson put on tape helped out their future opponents. But I mean, they did score 44 last week, but it wasn't like a dominant. It wasn't a dominant 44. I don't think NC State's that great. Am I wrong to say that?
No, I think you're fair in that assessment that NC State is not that good. They're not a contender within that conference. And I really think Miami plays down to their competition sometimes, and they should be better. I mean, the only team that really should be able to compete with Miami in that conference is, the North Carolinas, the Clemsons, of course, and the Notre Dames, and Miami should be right there in that conversation. But unfortunately, they struggle on the defense side of the ball, and sometimes they always don't click on the offense side of the ball. But I really think Virginia Tech gets this one, bounce back game, big win for Virginia Tech. So I'm taking Virginia Tech money line, Nick.
All right, now I will take the Canes at +2. You're giving me Miami in points. That's an easy one for me. No problem. All right, Indiana goes to Michigan State. The number 10 Indiana Hoosiers. And if they win this game, we got to get Jeremy Coleman on a podcast, friend of the podcast, Jeremy Coleman on, big Indiana guy. Hoosiers are 7-point favorites on the road going to play Sparty. I don't know what the hell to think of Michigan State. We've seen every side of Michigan State. I'm pretty sure we've seen the just tragic against Rutgers, probably the height of their season against Michigan, and just what we thought they were going to be after the Rutgers game. I thought what Iowa did to Michigan State last Saturday is what I expected Michigan to do to Michigan State the Saturday before. So I don't know what to think with this Michigan team. Indiana is good. They beat a good Penn State team. I still don't think this Penn State team's awful. Even though Maryland really, really kicked their butts. I think the Penn State team, that's still a good win. Indiana, you don't recruit on the same level as Michigan, so I'm going to call that a good win, even though Michigan is struggling right now. But they didn't really squash Rutgers. They let Rutgers hang around a little bit in that one. So I'm a little hesitant here, Rob, to jump on the Hoosiers with the points. I think they can cover, certainly, but that Rutgers game a couple weeks ago gives me a little bit of pause with the Hoosiers, and I'm just going to take Indiana on the money line.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm a ride, Indiana until they, actually lose. But right now they're playing good. They're clicking on both sides of the ball. I think Michael Penix is having, a tremendous year. Especially I think, Jeremy Coleman being a friend of the pod, I think he will tell you this. If Michael Penix can stay healthy, he's definitely one of the top tier quarterbacks in the Big Ten, and that's definitely showing earlier on this year. So I'm definitely going to roll with Indiana on the money line in this one.
That might not be saying much this year, though. Outside of Justin
Yeah,
Fields, pretty tough year in the Big Ten.
yeah, definitely pretty tough year. But once again, I think with the likes of Tanner Morgan, and I know you're having problems over there at Penn State with Sean Clifford at the quarterback position. But once again, coming into this season, Michael Penix was on some people's radar, but I think now he's on everyone's radar because of the spectacular season he's having so far.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so you got Indiana. What are you taking them with, the points or on the money line?
On the money line.
Okay, Indiana on the money line. All right, let's read through a bunch of games here before we get to our next one. Coastal Carolina. I'm going to read out the rest of the noon games here. Coastal Carolina goes to Troy. Middle Tennessee at Marshall. Western Carolina at Liberty. Army at Tulane. Penn State at Nebraska. Illinois at Rutgers. Wake Forest at North Carolina. TCU at West Virginia. Vanderbilt at Kentucky. Gardner-Webb at Charlotte. South Alabama at number 25, Louisiana. And Georgia State. That's the 2:00 hour. 2:30 here. Georgia State goes to App State. Fresno State goes to Utah State. UTEP at UTSA 3 p.m. South Florida USF at Houston 3 p.m. North Texas at UAB 3 p.m. And at 3:30, the number 2 Notre Dame Fighting Irish getting their first win against a number 1 ranked opponent since Charlie Ward won the Heisman Trophy in 1993 at Florida State. The week following that loss, though, every Notre Dame fan loves to remind you of this. Notre Dame lost to Boston College. Once again, Notre Dame beats the number 1 team. Once again, they're playing Boston College the week after. The first one was at Notre Dame. This one is at BC. The Irish are 13.5-point favorites, minus 550 on the money line, and the over-under is at 50. I've been calling the Irish frauds all year. I semi-apologized in the last podcast, though I did note that Clemson was missing plenty of pieces, especially on the defense. Boston College is one of those weird teams. They could rise up, play a good game. We saw the first half against Clemson, and then we watched the second half against Clemson. And I think that's who Boston College is right now. I think that Clemson game is very much who they are. I'm not sure they're capable of putting that full, complete game together, but I think there will be stretches of this game if they come out and play tough. They can make it look good. But I think Notre Dame definitely gets a win in this. I'm gonna err on the side that Notre Dame might be for real and take Notre Dame to cover at 13.5.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Great win for Notre Dame in that program. That to me, that was a must win. We talked about that. You have to beat Clemson with no Trevor Lawrence to kind of stay in, the playoff contention. So I think, you tip your hats off to Notre Dame getting a great win. And I'm actually going to, pick Notre Dame again on the money line. I'm not too confident in the spread with Notre Dame. I know Boston College normally plays them tough, and then we see how tough Boston College played Clemson. So I'm going to just stick with Notre Dame on the money line and take the safe play in this one.
Well, I'll be rooting for Boston College for the sake of the college football playoff and our BYU Cougars, man. I'll be rooting for that. All right, number 20, USC goes to Arizona. Southern Miss at Western Kentucky, also at 3:30. Rice at Louisiana Tech. Texas State at Georgia Southern. Louisville, Virginia. Colorado, Stanford go to the 4:00 hour here. Hawaii at San Diego State. Baylor at Texas Tech. Nevada at New Mexico. And Arkansas goes to number 6 Florida Gators at 7 p.m. Florida's coming off their biggest win they've had in years. Nice victory over Georgia last weekend. Arkansas comes to the Swamp 3-3. Nice, great win over Tennessee. Second half, 24-0 second half run there. Good Arkansas defense against a very good Florida offense. Strength on strength in this one. You wonder how that Florida secondary can hold up at a couple of deep shots with Felipe Franks. But Rob, we watched a lot of Felipe Franks in our past as Gator fans here. Obviously, that's a big storyline with him returning to the Swamp. His accuracy suffers downfield, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. We know the attributes that Felipe Franks have: dual threat quarterback coming out of high school, big arm guy. But just like
Big
you
arm.
said, he struggles with accuracy downfield. Probably the only game that he really didn't struggle too much with the accuracy downfield is the Hail Mary heave, the Tennessee game to Tyree Cleveland. But you're right. He definitely struggles with his accuracy. I know this Florida secondary has kind of been getting beat up all year long for giving up big plays and giving up 100-yard days to receivers on the other end. But
Yep.
this is a game that they can really use to kind of get their confidence back if they're kind of bait Felipe Franks into throwing some interceptions. So I think this should be a great day for the Florida Gator defense. And with that being said, I'm going to take Florida to cover with the points.
Okay, you're taking Florida at minus 17.5. Gators are 17.5-point favorites, minus 850 on the money line, and the over-under is at 60.5. So Florida 17.5. Think they can do it. However, all my years as a Gator, the one thing I know is the week after Georgia is a nice hangover game for Florida. Typically tough performances. You don't see the best performances on these games. I think it's a little different this year, though, because the season is so short. This is normally this time of the year, you've been playing for 2 full months and everything. You've really only been playing a little over a month, though. This is only the 6th game. So this is not, I don't think there's much fatigue with this squad. I think there's a ton of energy pumped into it from last week, but I'm a little skeptical about the defense still. Certainly lots of open receivers last week at Georgia that those Georgia quarterbacks weren't capable of hitting. Even though Franks is inconsistent downfield, I do think he's capable on connecting on 1 or 2 of those, while he's also making about 3 or 4 mistakes throughout the game, which I think will ultimately be the difference. But I think Arkansas, we saw South Carolina go in there and cover a big spread. I think Arkansas is capable. They've been a feisty team all year. Missing Sam Pittman, though, Rob, what type of impact do you think that I'll take the Hogs to cover at 17.5? But what do you think the impact of Sam Pittman will be? I hear Barry Odom is going to be the stand-in head coach for the day.
Yeah, I think the loss of Sam Pittman would, not have that much of effect because once again, Barry Odom has kind of been dialing it up on the defense side of the ball. And I think, he can kind of galvanize the troops and, go out and call a great game. But just like you said, anytime you have a head coach missing from the game, we kind of saw this with Nick Saban in Alabama a couple of weeks ago, where if Nick Saban was to miss that game, maybe the outcome of that game would be a little bit different. So the head coach being there is definitely a plus. But I really like Barry Odom as a coach, and I think he will fill in right at well and right at home. So I don't think they will be missing that much, but it will be a factor.
One of the few SEC games on the day, so that'll probably be the best SEC game standing at this point. Oregon, Washington State. The Ducks are 10.5-point favorites, minus 360 on the money line. The over-under is at 58 even. Washington State goes up to Corvallis, gets a nice win last week. This one's in the Palouse. Oregon will be traveling east. I like the Ducks to win. I just don't know much about Washington State yet. I like Nick Rolovich. I think in a couple of years he plays very similar style to what Mike Leach did, so I don't think it's going to be a big adjustment for that Washington State program. But Washington State did push Oregon last year. This was one of those games that Oregon had to fight. That was a great game late. I remember I fell asleep in the 4th quarter and I was so mad at myself because it ended up being a great finish. I missed the last drive or two, but great game between those two. The last couple of years, they've really been playing hard. These two have been playing hard, but I'm going to go with Oregon to win. I'm not sure about, I think the Ducks can win, but I might like the over better actually at 58. 58 seems pretty attainable, so I'm going to just take the over at 58.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think, taking the over at 58 is a safe play. So I'm definitely hopping on board with you in that one, Nick, and I definitely agree with that over in that game.
All right, SMU Tulsa at 7:00. Pittsburgh Georgia Tech, that could be a good one. Wisconsin goes to Michigan 7:30. Welcome back to football. Wisconsin Badgers, been a few weeks, only going to be their 2nd game of the season. Rob, it's November 14th, and Wisconsin's playing their 2nd game of the season. Just had to say that again. The Badgers are 4.5-point favorites, minus 200 on the money line, and the over-under is at 53.5. Honestly, I won't. This is like a stay away game for me entirely because I don't know if Graham Marsh is playing because according to the Big Ten protocol, a 21-day quarantine, he shouldn't be playing. And yet I'm seeing headlines that he might be playing. So is he playing? Isn't he playing? What's your protocol, Big Ten? I don't get it. I'm confused. It's why I'll probably live bet the game. I don't know if I'd want to bet this game ahead of time, but hey, if you're forcing, we're going to be forced to take a pick right now. I'll just take Wisconsin on the money line.
Yeah, I think this goes into what you were saying earlier in regards to the Virginia Tech line, where they coming off a big loss to Liberty and they're the favorites over Miami. This line kind of, trips me up a little bit. Just like you said, this is Wisconsin's second game, and they're coming in as a 4.5-point favorite.
Yeah,
don't like that. I definitely don't like that. But once again, this Wisconsin team is loaded. Especially on the defense side of the ball. And you know what they want to do. They just want to run the ball. They know their identity. So I'm actually going to be on the safe side and just take Wisconsin on the money line.
Yeah, you're also doing Wisconsin on the money line. Rob, what's Michigan's problem right now? What are you seeing? A lot of criticism on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, normally with this Michigan team, the defense has kind of been the staple. They've been having, great defenses the last, at least the last 4 years, taking players and putting them in on the next level in the NFL. So I think the defense has kind of been the staple, but now it just seems like the defense is cracking right now and the offense can't, keep up. That's what it really seems right now. And we've seen that before where, the defense has kind of been the strong unit of the team every year out. And then once the defense is not the strong unit and the offense is not the strong unit, the team just kind of crumbles and collapses. I think that's what you're seeing right now out in Ann Arbor.
Do you think Michigan and Harbaugh figure out a way to make it work another year?
I think they will. I think he's too great of an asset to the program and definitely a great recruiter. So I think they kind of, work it out and bring Harbaugh back. I don't see him, we talk about this. If Harbaugh leaves, who you're going to bring in? And you make a great point every time we have this conversation, Nick. So I think Harbaugh stays, and I think they turn it around. But they really just have to get the quarterback play down. I think that's the biggest thing. Early in the year, Joe Milton's getting high praises for the first game after the Minnesota game, but he hasn't been doing too good. The last couple of weeks. So if they can get that quarterback position, tighten up, I think Michigan is can definitely move in the right direction with Harbaugh at the head coaching job.
I want to see Harbaugh and Michigan play super aggressive on offense. I want them running the ball. I want them being physical up front, but I want them taking chances. 4th and 2, go for it. 4th and 3, go. I want them to be ultra aggressive in this game. Because you're staring at 1 and 3 in the face. The Big Ten championship's out of the question at this point already this season with 2 losses. Out of the question. So we don't need to worry about is he or isn't he. We don't need to worry about Ohio State. It's about salvaging the season at this point if you're Michigan. So I'd like to see an ultra aggressive approach because why leave anything on the field at this point? Don't do it. So just get after it, Michigan. Play aggressive. And Wisconsin, this should be a good game, but Graham Mertz plays, definitely leaning toward the Badgers on that one. Graham Mertz doesn't play, I probably just wouldn't bet on the game. So I'll say that. Northwestern at Purdue, 7:30 p.m. Temple goes to UCF at 7:30. Florida State, NC State, also 7:30. And to round out that hour is South Carolina at Ole Miss. 10:30 games, UNLV at San Jose State. Cal goes to Arizona State. Arizona State's a 3.5-point favorite in this one, minus 175 on the money line. The total is at 47. I like this Arizona State team. I was pretty fired up watching them against USC last week. They look like they made progress. They're taking steps. They're up by 2 touchdowns late in the 4th quarter, and they blow it. They end up giving up a late touchdown, onside kick, and another touchdown. They're going to kick themselves for losing that game. Because I think this Arizona State team is under the radar, pretty good squad. And I'd be disappointed if they lost to Cal in this one. But I think Cal is one of those teams, too, where you definitely can't overlook it. This is definitely a coin flip matchup. I like the Cal defense, though. And Cal struggled on offense last year a little bit. So I'm going to take the under at 47 in this one.
Yeah, I just like you said, Nick, Arizona State kind of had that game last week in the bag with USC. they kind of let it slip away from them. They gave it up towards the end. I think they come and they use and they stay focused. The whole game from opening kickoff to the final whistles blow. I think Arizona State comes out with this one. So I'm going to take Arizona State on the money line.
Sun Devils on the money line. You like what Herm's building out there?
I do, but I really like the quarterback, Jaden Daniels. I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in that conference and definitely one of the better quarterbacks in the nation. He can throw that thing around, and once he gets a little bit more confident in his throws, especially on the outside part of the hashes, I think it's no telling what he can do. He definitely be a Heisman candidate in the next couple of years. I tell you that.
Yeah, I could definitely see that evolving into that situation. We're going to finish out in the Pac-12 here. Utah travels to UCLA, 10:30. The Utes are only a 3-point favorite in this game, -160 on the money line. Over-unders at 59.5. And I think this is a close spread because we just don't know much about Utah. They're starting, I believe Jake Bentley is starting, unless that's changed in recent weeks here. But last I saw, Jake Bentley was the starter for Utah. They had their game canceled last week, so we don't know for sure. UCLA went to Colorado, ends up losing to their former coach, Karl Dorrell. I think most people are expecting Colorado to be among the bottom feeders of the Pac-12. So that's a pretty disappointing loss. And was this year 3 of Chip Kelly, Rob?
Yeah.
And so you got Utah as the 3-point favorite. It makes sense to me, even with what we don't know about UCLA. I don't care. This UCLA team, I'm tired of waiting on them. I think Utah goes in there and gets the job done. I'm going to take the Utes at -3.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a must win for UCLA. Definitely for Chip Kelly. You have Utah. They're kind of getting their bearings under them. They had a great year last year with Tyler Huntley and Zach Moss in the backfield. And just like you said, it's up in the air with Kyle Whittingham, who's going to throw back there, whether it's going to be Jake Bentley, the graduate transfer, or whether it's going to be Cam Rising. So I think Utah has a lot of stuff going on. So I'm actually going to pick UCLA on the money line in this one. So this is probably going to be my upset pick of the week right here.
Yeah, that is an upset right there. Oregon State goes to Washington at 11 p.m. The Beavers are 13-point underdogs. Huskies -550 on the money line. Over-unders at 52. I think that's very achievable with this Oregon State offense. Washington can score some points too. Let's go with the over at 52 in this one. I like what Oregon did. That they played Oregon State. They've been building under Jonathan Smith, and the one thing you can count on is they're going to score some points.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I think that's the safe play in this game, to take the over. And I'm right there with you. I'm jumping all over the over in this one, Nick. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. So just give me the over in this one.
All right. So good. That wraps up our college football segment. And we'll be right back after this. Welcome to the NFL segment of the weekly picks. Let's go over the bye weeks first. The Atlanta Falcons, Dallas Cowboys, Kansas City Chiefs, and the New York Jets to get a merciful break from this season. And they're going to sit around all week and just listen to hot takes about how Trevor Lawrence should just say no to going to play in New York. Yeah, like I've suggested that very thing to you on the side, Robert. We've talked about that, but can you imagine being a Jets fan and you have this type of season, and then you're like, oh, well, at least we'll get Trevor Lawrence. And then he's like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going to come play for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Jets is definitely in a good position. I know a lot of people, the outside talk is, oh my God, you guys can't draft Trevor Lawrence. He's going to go back to school. But I tell you what, they're definitely in a position to kind of trade that pick and kind of pick up multiple picks and kind of not only, have one all-star, superstar type caliber player, but bring a couple on board. So I think the Jets are still in a good position, even though a lot of people say they're not right now.
I thought I happen to remember very clearly when Sam Darnold was their dream.
Yeah, I was never really high on the Sam Darnold pick. Once again, had a short career at USC. I know when he got a chance, he took advantage of the opportunity and he had a great season. But one of the knocks on Sam Darnold was him turning the ball over. So, and I think you kind of see that in the NFL. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the weapons like all the young quarterbacks surrounding him. But at the end of the day, that's one thing that you can't do: turn over the ball, and that's one thing that Sam Darnold has done in his career.
Well, the Jets, we even mentioned during the podcast the other night, looks like they're going to win, but there's a good chance they'll find a way to lose, and they did. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised because we even kind of called it on the podcast.
Yeah.
All right, Thursday night, Indianapolis goes to Tennessee. Big game in the AFC South. This is their first meeting in 2020. The Titans are only 1-point favorite in this one, -120 on the money line, and the over-unders at 48.5. I know Tennessee's kind of been a little bit of a funk. This seems like a game where they're going to get out of it, though. I like Indianapolis. I think they played okay football this year, but most of their wins have been against pretty bad teams. Tennessee does not fall in that category. I'm shocked this is only a 1-point game on the spread. I'm going to take the Titans at -1.
Yeah, I'm definitely shocked at this line, especially with Tennessee being at home and the type of game that the Colts played last week against the Ravens. So I like Tennessee to kind of win this one outright. So on the safe side, I'm going to go Tennessee on the money line.
All right, let's go to Sunday. We got a big one here in Cleveland at 1 p.m. I know it's just Houston. I know Houston's not very good, but the playoff pack is growing a little bigger in the AFC. You got the Colts in the picture. You got the Brownies. I'm talking about a wild card here. You got the Raiders out west, and the Dolphins are suddenly rising. I don't think we really expected the Raiders and Dolphins a few weeks ago. We talked about the possibility of that happening, but I don't think either one of us were stumping for the Raiders or Dolphins to make the playoffs, unlike the Browns. I still think Cleveland's got the schedule to get it done, though. This is a winnable game, though, and this is the exact type of game that Cleveland tends to fall flat in. Houston's obviously probably one of the better 2-7 teams you're ever going to see. They're not a bad, terrible football team because you got Deshaun Watson. You can't be the worst. But they're bad enough where you need to lock this up if you're going to be a playoff team, Cleveland. So must win at home for the Brownies. Cleveland -3 on the spread, -175 on the money line. Over unders at 49.5. I'm going to take the Browns to cover at -3 because this is a big one for Baker. He's got to get it done.
Yeah, you're right about that. This is a big game for Cleveland. These are those must-win games that normal teams just win. It's not a high, profile matchup. I mean, if you look at the quarterback position, I guess it is Deshaun Watson versus Baker Mayfield. But, just the Cleveland Browns versus the Houston Texans, this is a game that Cleveland has to win. But just like you said, Deshaun Watson is no slouch. He can definitely put up points. And I'm not too confident in the Cleveland Browns as I was with them earlier in the year. So one thing that I am safe taking is the over in this game, Nick. So I definitely like the over 49.5.
I'm going to remember this. I took forever to get you on the Cleveland bandwagon, and the second you sense any doubt, you're hemming and hawing over there. So don't try to get back on. Don't try to get back on the Browns bandwagon.
I think I'm off for good, especially for this year. I know Nick Chubb might have an opportunity to come back in the next couple weeks.
And you'll be sorry.
That's definitely going to help Cleveland and Cleveland move forward, especially to make a playoff run, and a deep playoff run. With that being said, but yeah, I'm just more confident in taking over this week. I kind of want to see how Cleveland, beat the teams that they should beat moving forward.
Washington goes to Detroit at 1 o'clock. And if you're Washington, your QB situation is once again in flux. Dwayne Haskins, I guess he's been banished. I guess he's just been banished from the team. Like, where the hell is he? Like, what's going on here? Like, it's becoming a very weird situation. Ron Rivera seems to be trying to teach a lesson, though. So we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, probably going to get Alex Smith on Sunday, I would assume. The Lions are fading. They have not been playing very good football, but they are 3.5-point favorites in this one. Detroit on the money line -190. Over-unders at 46.5. Rob, I'm going to go against my better judgment and pick the Lions in this one. I think Detroit has shown enough fight for me in different games. Washington's always a tough out, but I was pretty disappointed in what I saw from them against Dallas this week. And so that's sticking with me a little bit. I was disappointed with Detroit the last couple of weeks too, don't get me wrong, but the Washington situation just seems a little rough right now. So I'm going to go Detroit on the money line.
Yeah, I'm right there with you with Detroit on the money line. I think Detroit is one of those feisty teams. They're the quarterback situation with Matthew Stafford. That's in flux right now. We don't know if he's going to play. I know they were saying he might. He didn't test positive for COVID, but I think they were doing the contact tracing. So that might have outcome on the result of the game, but. Even if Matthew Stafford doesn't play, I definitely like Detroit in this one. So I will definitely, stay with Detroit on the money line.
The Jacksonville Jaguars go to Green Bay to play the Cheeseheads 1 p.m. on Fox. Good start for Jake Luton out of the gates last week. Nothing wrong with what we saw from the guy. Was very impressed with the 6th-round pick out of Oregon State. A lot of people think he's developed a little past Minshew where we've seen from Minshew this week. Mark Brunell came out and said that. I saw in a couple of reports. I still like Minshew. I'm a Minshew fan. I think he's going to get an opportunity. If it's not in Jacksonville, he'll get an opportunity somewhere else. I don't think Jake Luton is by any means a long-term plan at the quarterback position, but not bad for a plug-and-play 6th-round pick when you need him late in the season. So I think he'll go out, make a few good throws in this game too. But we just watched Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams light up the 49ers last week. Green Bay is jockeying for seeding in the NFC. They can't screw around. They're at -13 on the spread. I'm a little nervous to take that just because it's the NFL and I got respect and everything. But the over-unders at 50 might be a little high for me because I do think there's a chance the Jags can stick around. I also think there's a chance to get blown the hell out. But Rob, it's -1,000 on the money line. That's just chickening out, right? You can't do that. That's not making any money for anybody. So I'm going to go with the Packers at -13, but I don't love it.
Yeah, unlike you, I love taking the Packers with the spread because there's no way that I fathom Jake Luton beating the Aaron Rodgers-led Green Bay team. And especially with Aaron Jones being back, it really seems like this offense. Yeah, everyone talks about Devontae Adams and the Aaron Rodgers connection, but it just seems like when Aaron Jones is in the lineup, it just seems like this offense moves so much better. Mainly because Aaron Jones can, beat you between the tackles, and he also can beat you out the backfield, receiving the ball. So I am comfortable in taking, the 13-point spread with the Green Bay Packers in this one.
Yeah, another NFC North team is doing pretty good with their running back from injury too, but we'll get to them in a little bit here. Philadelphia goes to New York to play the Giants. A win over Washington brought the Giants back to just one. They're just one game back of the Eagles in the win column. They're not one game back in the standings, one back in the win column. Big game in the NFC East. The Eagles can't afford to slip up, but this was part of our prescription for the Eagles. We said get through that stretch at the beginning. You'll have a few get right games, but man, they're struggling. They're not making it look pretty. I'll tell you that. They're not making these get right games look pretty. They struggled against the Giants. They limped against the Cowboys. They're favored here by 3.5. I think this Eagles team is not good, but I do think they're going to end up winning the division. Philly -3.5, -180 on the money line, and the over-unders at 44.5. I like the Eagles, but I only like them on the money line. I should be able to comfortably say I'd take them at -3.5, but I can't with this team. So just Philly on the money line for me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I like Philly on the money line in this one. And the reason why is because, all the talk out there about Carson Wentz, I think Carson Wentz has an opportunity to go back and, go back to the drawing board, kind of get his mechanics right, take a deep breath, and just play football. And he can silence the critics and silence the haters out there. And in order for him to do that, he has to get a win this week against the Giants. And I think they get that done. And I think he plays well in doing it. So give me the Eagles on the money line in this one.
If the Giants win this game and they get to 3 wins in the W column, are you worried about the Giants threatening the Eagles to win the division?
Yeah. I mean, but if you just go back and you look at the Giants games, they kind of played tough from beginning to end. I know that Tampa Bay game that the Giants played.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones missed a lot of open receivers in that game, and they actually had an opportunity to win that game. So I think if you just go back and watch the Giants play, they're a feisty team. I think they get after the passer. They're definitely divulge of weapons on the offense side of the ball with Saquon Barkley being out. But for some reason, they're feisty, they're a competitive team, and I can definitely see them winning the division if they can get this win against the Eagles this week. But once again, I'm not going to go back on my pick, Nick. I'm sticking with the Eagles on the money line.
What a ludicrous thought. That's a ludicrous thought to even consider that they're going to win the division. But, hey, it's weird that Philly's even in a division hunt, too, because they'd be buried in any other division in football. Tampa Bay, Carolina, 1 p.m., Fox. I'm still baffled by that Buccaneers performance against New Orleans. Unlike Tampa last weekend, Carolina played fantastic at Kansas City. Damn near got a win. They also played Tampa pretty close down the stretch in the first one. Tampa controlled the game, but Carolina came back. They made it interesting late. I do think the Buccaneers, though, they seem to have this mentality that when they don't play well, they seem to bounce back strong. They're -5.5 on the spread, -230 on the money line. Over-unders at 50.5. I'm a little nervous about making this pick, but I don't know what to think of that performance last week, and maybe they need another week to work Antonio Brown in the system. I don't know if you heard that Bruce Arians, they asked him after the game about Mike Evans being open. He's like, yeah, Mike Evans was open a bunch that game. I'm like, I don't know why you say that. Why do you say that publicly and cause a problem? So I'm just out of caution here, and just because I think Carolina is good enough to warrant this, I'm going to take the Panthers at +5.5.
Wow, you're taking the Panthers at +5.5.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go opposite with that one. Once again, you talked about Bruce Arians, kind of taking shots at Tom Brady, and that's one thing a player like Tom Brady doesn't need, any extra motivation. So with that being said, I think Tom Brady goes out and have him a day, and I'm actually going to take Tampa Bay on the spread. I actually was going to get in and talk about Christian McCaffrey. He's not going to be available to play with the shoulder injury that he suffered last game. But hey, this team has been rolling without Christian McCaffrey. So I think right now having Christian McCaffrey in the lineup for the Panthers is a bonus right now. But with that being said, I don't think it's enough to overcome the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, especially after laying that egg against the Saints this past week. So give me Tom Brady and Tampa Bay Buccaneers with the spread, the 5.5.
Good pick. All right. So we're going head-to-head on that one. Denver at Las Vegas, 405 CBS. Vegas been playing some good football late. The Broncos, they have some nice pieces. You could see the offense forming before your eyes. They have some nice pieces going forward. Flashes of good play, but too much inconsistency. A lot of mistakes. Denver is a 4.5-point dog in this one. -210 on the money line for the Raiders. Over-unders at 51. The Raiders, though, they know they play their share of close games. I'm gonna be a little conservative on this one. I'm gonna stick with the Raiders, but I'm gonna go with the Raiders on the money line here to win.
Yeah, and I like that pick, and I'm gonna go right there with you. Raiders on the money line. I definitely agree with you in regards to Denver having the pieces that they need on both sides of the ball. But just like you said, they're kind of young, and their head coach has been mismanaging some games this year. So with that being said, I'm gonna put stock in the better quarterback at this time and the better head coach in Gruden. So give me Raiders on the money line.
What do you think Fangio's mismanaged?
I think, he kind of mismanaged a couple games down the stretch earlier in the season. But once again, when you don't have all your players and your personnel there, it's kind of easy to kind of have that happen. And especially this year more than any other year.
What specifically did he mismanage?
Off the top of my head, I think it was it the Monday night game or the Thursday night game with the field goal unit? I can't recall, but I know that was one of the bigger
was it
talks.
The Jets game?
Was it the Jets game?
I don't know.
I'm blanking. I'm blanking on it, but I know that was one of the bigger talks of the town that particular week where Fangio just kind of mismanaged the game.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I didn't remember that. That's what I was just trying to remember what you're talking about on that. All right. All right, let's move on. Let's go to the Chargers at the Dolphins, 405 CBS. And I'll tell you what, if you're buying stock in NFL teams going forward, I think you're buying stock in both of these teams in the AFC. Miami, they're starting to see some of these close games turn into wins. The number 5 pick in the draft, Tua, squares off with the number 6 pick in the draft, Justin Herbert. Rob, I know you loved what you've seen from Justin Herbert. Tua gets a head-to-head win against Kyler Murray last week. The Dolphins, they can play a little bit of defense. They can play high-scoring football. It seems like they can play anything at this point. They're one of the hottest teams in football. Miami's a 2.5-point favorite in this one, minus 140 on the money line, and the over/under is at 48.5. I'm going to go with the high-scoring game in this one. I think the rookie quarterback's going to go up and down the field a little bit here. How do you feel about it? I'm going to go with the over at 48.5.
Yeah, surprising that you're going with the over because I was definitely going with the over as well. I think this is going to be a back and forth game. Two rookie quarterbacks going at each other. Justin Herbert's having an amazing year. Didn't expect to be the starter. He kind of got thrown in the fire with the injury to Tyrod Taylor. Everyone kind of knows that story now. And Tua actually get handed the job over. So I think both of these quarterbacks is doing a heck of a job so far. But just like you said, this Dolphins team is definitely playing good on the defense side of the ball. And the Chargers definitely have pieces on their side of the ball defensive wise. But I think this comes down to the quarterbacks, high scoring game. So I like the over in this one.
Buffalo goes to Arizona, 4 o'clock, CBS. This is my must-watch game of the week. I love this Arizona team. I mean, the last few weeks watching the Seahawks, that Dolphins game, they are a fun team to watch. Good for them for figuring it out. Cliff Kingsbury looking like a fantastic hire out there. Not maybe the best top to bottom football team, but entertaining to watch on a week in, week out basis. They are favored by 2 points over the Bills, minus what's it say? 130 on the money line. Sorry, I'm getting old, man. My eyes are going. Minus 130 on the money line. Over unders at 56.5. I like this Cardinals team despite the upset. The Bills, they've been playing good football too. I mean, you just manhandled the Seahawks last week. You absolutely get the monkey off your back with New England, even though New England's not a great team this year. Josh Allen, we were talking about it. His big knock was accuracy, and all of a sudden we're seeing some pretty good numbers out of the guy in terms of accuracy. If he gets hot and that Bills offense gets hot, they'll beat anybody in the league. This Bills team is capable, but I think the Cardinals losing that game to Miami last week, they had an opportunity to jump the Seahawks. I think you're going to get an angry Cardinals team this week. I like the Cardinals to cover in this one. Buffalo goes away from home. I'm not sure if they play quite as well when they leave the friendly confines of Buffalo chicken wing country there, Buffalo wing country. But I'm going to go with the Cardinals at -2.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the matchups that I will be keeping an eye on this week. But just like you said, it's kind of a toss up. Great win for Buffalo last week against Seattle, and a tough loss for Arizona against the Dolphins. But I'm going to jump on the under in this one. I think this one's going to be a physical game. I think they're going to try to do everything in their power to kind of stop Kyler Murray from kind of running. So I'm going to take the under in this game, Nick.
Yeah, Bills defense is definitely something that this Bills team, if they get hot at the right time, this could easily be a Super Bowl winner. Easily. And I feel the same way about the Cardinals, actually. I think both these teams, they got good enough pieces on both sides of the ball where they get hot at the right moment. It could be very interesting. Big question mark about Seattle after that game at Buffalo last week, though. They go to Los Angeles, play the Rams. 6-2 Seahawks. They really had a chance to put the division away. I thought the Seahawks were going to handle that trip to Buffalo with no problem. They are underdogs this week at LA, +1.5. The odds are LA -120 on the money line, and the over-unders at 55.5. People are down on the Seahawks team because of the defense, but I'm going to say this. They found a way to get it done in spite of that defense 6 out of 8 weeks in the first half of the season here. As long as you got Russell Wilson playing football in Seattle, you got a shot. I can't even believe they're underdogs in this game. This is an easy Seattle pick for me. I'm going to go Seattle on the money line. I don't even need the points. You can keep your points.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. You look at that Seattle and Buffalo game last week, and you see Russell Wilson turn the ball over 4 times. I don't think that happens again, even with Aaron Donald on the other side of the field. And Seattle kind of, stayed in there a little bit, but, those turnovers definitely killed them. But with that being said, I definitely love Russell Wilson. We talked about Russell Wilson all year long, MVP candidate, especially from the halfway point of the season. I think he bounces back in a big way. So give me Seattle on the money line in this.
Well, I thought you bought all my Ram stock from me.
I did. But once again, Russell Wilson, bounce back
Different
game.
story.
I love to take great quarterbacks in a bounce back game, and Russell Wilson is one of those guys. So I'm definitely taking Tom Brady and Russell Wilson this week for a bounce back game.
All right, San Francisco goes to New Orleans, 425 on Fox. The Saints, 9.5-point favorites over the 49ers, minus 450 on the money line. The over-under is at 49.5. And Rob, the only question I have for you on this one, this seems like it should be an easy cover for New Orleans. Are we going to see a hangover from the Saints after a big game against Tampa last week? Did Jameis Winston eat too many W's after the game?
I think he's gonna, eat a couple more W's moving forward. And the reason why I say that is because of Michael Thomas. Like, if you watch that game, I know Tampa Bay had a horrible game. I know on both sides of the ball. But the offense just looks so much fluid with Michael Thomas being back. And Drew Brees looks like, he's the Drew Brees of old in a sense, because he's so happy he has Michael Thomas back. And it just kind of opened up that whole offense. So I like Saints to cover the spread with ease. So give me Saints on the spread, and Jameis Winston's probably going to eat some more W's in the next coming weeks.
God, I hope we don't have to watch that anymore. Minus 9.5. I'll take the Saints as well. Cincinnati goes to Pittsburgh, 425. The Steelers, minus 8.5 point favorite. 8.5 point favorite. I don't know why I read it like that. 8.5 point favorite. Minus 417 on the money line, and the over under in this game is at 47.5. I would normally think this is an easy game to pick, but what happened against Dallas last weekend?
Yeah, it really seemed like they just didn't come out to play. They kind of, slept walk through that first half. They got knocked in the mouth, and then they kind of woke up. But I think, the bigger issue might be, the status of Big Ben Roethlisberger. We kind of saw him limped off last week against Dallas with a knee injury. So I don't know if it's a knee injury, that's going to hold him out. I know it was some COVID protocols that they were talking about with Big Ben as well. So we shall see moving forward if he plays. But with that being said, I definitely like Cincinnati with the points in this one. I think Joe Burrow has been playing exceptionally well, this whole season, even though he's kind of been getting beat up. But you kind of think, can the Steelers go undefeated?
It's certainly possible, but if you lose Roethlisberger, like I did see, he did get put on the COVID-19 list for Pittsburgh. That's a huge deal. So in that case, if Roethlisberger's out, I'm still going to pick the Steelers in this one, but you got Joe Burrow on the other side. This ain't your daddy Cincinnati Bengals now. They got a real quarterback. And I think that could be a scary matchup on Sunday for the Steelers where, you saw how they played. You saw how they played against Dallas. They were gettable on Sunday, weren't they? You could have got them with a little better play. Dallas just wasn't the team to do it. I'll tell you what, if they play like they had again, Cincinnati's going to get them this week. But if you want to go down the schedule and talk about undefeated here, you got Jacksonville. And let's assume Ben's back, okay? We'll assume he's back for this weekend next week, all right? Bengals, Jacksonville. Then you got the Ravens, Washington, Buffalo, at Cincinnati versus Indy at Cleveland. If you get through that Cleveland, I really think Cleveland are, I'm sorry, not Cleveland. If you get through the Ravens and Bills game, I think you got a good shot. There's really only two games that scare me.
Yeah. Once again, I think that Ravens game, division game, that's probably going to be, their toughest matchup moving forward. But if they can get over that, then I see them having an undefeated season as long as Big Ben can stay healthy. But yeah, they're right there on the cusp to have an undefeated season. But once again, it comes down to the health of Big Ben Roethlisberger.
I'm still going to go Steelers on the money line. I'll go a little more conservative just because we're not sure about Big Ben. Who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going with Cincinnati with the points in this one.
Cincinnati with the points. All right. Joe Burrow plus 8.5. That's not a bad pick at all. All right. Baltimore at New England. The Pats, nice comeback, I guess, against the Jets. Good comeback.
No.
It's just a different year, man. I mean, if the Patriots, this is a throwaway year at this point. Baltimore's still coming in there, minus 7.5. And the only thing you wonder about New England is maybe with some of these teams they have a history with, like Baltimore, is I wonder how much the uniform matters or the jerseys are going to matter in the Patriots in the Ravens' heads. How much impact do you think that plays when Baltimore goes in there?
I think it plays an important role when they go in there. But talking about this game, did you see what Lamar Jackson came out and said to the media in regards to the defense knowing the Baltimore Ravens plays like
No.
that was huge. I mean, Lamar Jackson, he pretty much said that the defense is calling out our plays, stuff like that. Jackson said, I'm quoting Lamar Jackson in this one. He said they know what we're doing. Sometimes stuff won't go our way if they're beating us to the punch. So I think that was pretty indicative of, this offense that's surrounding Lamar Jackson. The Ravens kind of coattail their offense to kind of cater to Lamar Jackson. And it just seems like that offense is predictable now. They kind of have to switch it up. And, that's one thing that you don't want to do coming into playing a Bill Belichick defensive team where he schemes around you. So I really like Patriots with the points in this one.
Ooh, and honestly, I still respect the uniforms. It's still New England. I know they're not playing good football right now. Baltimore really should cover this pretty easily if you just look at the quality of the two teams on the field right now. I'm going to take Baltimore on the money line. I think the Ravens find a way to get a win, but I think you're right. I think it's going to be closer than Vegas seems to think here. I think it's going to be a hard-fought game. If other teams are figuring out Baltimore's plays, I think Bill Belichick will do it. Hell, Belichick's probably the one sending all the tapes out.
Yeah. So that's definitely a team that you don't want to play when you're saying every defense kind of knows our plays. So yeah. So with that being said, I definitely like Patriots to keep it close. I think that win against the Jets kind of gave Cam Newton and that Patriots team some confidence. So they actually kind of put two good games together, and they don't win, but I think they keep it close enough to cover.
Minnesota goes to Chicago, 8:15 ESPN. The Vikings are 3-point favorites in this one, minus 150 on the money line, and the total is at 44. If you would have told everyone 3 weeks ago that Minnesota at Chicago on a Monday night was going to have the Vikings favored by 3 points, I think people would have thought you were a little crazy based on the way the season started here. But since Dalvin Cook came back, this Minnesota team, you said it last week on our picks pod, Rod, it's a different team with Dalvin Cook, and it takes pressure off Cousins. You broke it down perfectly last week, and we saw that on display against the Lions. And I'll tell you what, based on the way this Bears offense has looked, if Dalvin Cook's healthy, this is a no-brainer Vikings pick for me. Minnesota -3.
Yeah, just like you said, when Dalvin Cook's in this lineup, this Minnesota team is different, not only on the offense side of the ball, but the defense side of the ball, because, he takes pressure off the defense, by, running the ball, grinding the clock out. So, and that's what Mike Zimmer wants to do. He wants to run the ball, and he wants to play defense, and he wants to run play action off of that. And I think you have two great receivers on the outside, especially in the rookie receiver, Justin Jefferson, who's been playing lights out, and, of course, Adam Thielen. But yeah, this is definitely a no-brainer for me. Minnesota on the money line. I think Dalvin Cook is going to be too much for this, Bears defense, which is a good defense, but not great defense like, the Bears normally have. But it's definitely a good defense. But just like you said, I think the struggles for the Bears is on the offense side of the ball. And I think Minnesota defense is coming around. So with that being said, give me Minnesota on the money line.
Minnesota on the money line. And the Vikings, are they slowly sneaking into the wild card?
They actually are. I know. I mean, this is definitely a big game for them. So if they get this win, they're right back closer to the wild card than they were. I know a lot of the talk of the town was, maybe the Vikings should tank. especially when they, traded a couple pieces away. But right now they're clawing back. Dalvin Cook is healthy. Kirk Cousins is not turning the ball over, and the defense is playing, pretty well for a young defense.
All right, that's our NFL pick section for this week. Rob, unless you got anything to add, I'm going to move on to the Did You Know?
No, nothing else for me. We ready to dive into the Did You Know? What do you have for me today?
All right. I'm keeping it Minnesota Vikings based. I know you're a big Vikings guy. All right. And what I want to know tonight, and I'm sure you probably know this as a Minnesota Vikings fan because you probably hear it a lot about your quarterback. What is Kirk Cousins' all-time record on Monday Night Football? All right. I want to know Kirk Cousins' all-time record on Monday Night Football. And we'll be back after this. American Football Stories is brought to you by CoachPaint. CoachPaint is a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlight clips similar to the graphics you see on TV. CoachPaint offers the ability to clearly tell a straight video while increasing retention of information in a shorter amount of time. Up your game with CoachPaint today. Kirk Cousins, Monday Night Football. The only hint I'll give is not so good. What's his record on Monday Night Football as a starter, Rob?
Well, I like to preface by saying this. Kirk Cousins has a all-time, he's definitely a winner at the starter position. So he has above 500 rating as a starter all time in history. But when it comes to Monday night, prime time, it's kind of horrible. So Kirk Cousins has never won on Monday night, but hopefully that will change this coming Monday with the Chicago Bears, and I think it will. So I'm actually going to put this in the universe. Kirk Cousins get his first win on Monday Night Football. So I'm throwing that out there for you, Nick.
Kirk Cousins is 0-9 on Monday Night Football, 0-6 with Washington, and that trend has continued with Minnesota. So last year they played on Monday night against Green Bay. They lost 23-10. And hey, sometimes it's just a weird coincidence. Sometimes I don't know. But Kirk Cousins has certainly played well enough in plenty of big games that I don't think it's the spotlight that gets to him. I think it's just a weird coincidence.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, a couple of those games, I'm pretty sure he wished he could have some of those throws back. But for the most part, I don't think it's just, Kirk Cousins can't win on Monday night. I think that's just how, the chips fall sometimes. But just like I said, I'm throwing it out there in the universe. Kirk Cousins get his first win on Monday Night Football this coming week against the Bears.
All right. Sounds like you just jinxed it. Good for you. Good for you. All right. And we won't credit Dalvin Cook at all. We'll credit Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, no matter if Dalvin runs for 300 yards, we're gonna give this one to Kirk.
Kirk Cousins gets the win. All right. You want to read us out?
Yeah. Once again, we appreciate our listeners to listen to this episode of American Football Stories. Find us on Apple Podcasts and YouTube, and please subscribe and rate us 5 stars. Follow us on Twitter at American FB Stories, and check out our website at AmericanFootballStories.com. And once again, my name is Robert Parker III, and my co-host is Nick Newsom. Thank you for joining us, and tune in to next week's episode.
You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sports. You play to win. And I don't care if you don't have any wins. You go play to win. When you start telling me it doesn't matter, then retire. Get out. Because it matters.
I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is. The reason I don't think there is because we found bones of dinosaurs and everything else, but we haven't found bones that I've heard of Bigfoot.
I'm very upset. We should have been in the ball game with fast field goal. The coach had sent him in. We shouldn't have sent him in. That's a dang coaching mistake. The kids are playing their tail off, and the coaches are screwing it up.
We just got to stop that little inside trap. You know, the option didn't hurt us much. We played pretty hard. We just got to stop that inside thing. Offensively, we kind of sputtered around, got the ball in the end zone. You know, defensively, we got to get out off the field on that 2-minute drive.
Injuries to your offensive line. What do you do in the second half?
Oh, we're just going to play. We just got to keep playing.
Thank you, Coach.
He has a magnificent personality, I'll tell you.
We receive a lot of mail during the course of the season, and a lot of it's good mail, a lot of it's bad. And one of the
I would say that most of it is good, though, isn't it, Bill?
Yeah, I think so.
I'd say 95 to 98% of the mail we get is always good.
But the one question that keeps coming up where Woody Hayes' name is involved, they say you're a man of no mercy. And yet,
you know, frankly, I don't care much what they think.